Today on Under the Brand, I'm honored to sit down with Dr. Trei McMullen, a bold leader whose mission is nothing short of safeguarding freedom, empowering veterans, and healing the heroes who keep us safe. Dr. McMullen is the founder and CEO of SYOTOS Technology, a decorated combat veteran, and a passionate advocate for mission-driven security solutions and mental health. He's also a mission ambassador for Healing the Hero, supporting veterans, first responders, and their families as they navigate their life after service. We're going to talk about leadership under pressure, protecting our communities, and the bold moves that have shaped his career and life's work. So let's get started. Trei, first of all, thank you for your service to this country. It's remarkable. I'm humbled to have you on our show and excited to learn more about your background. So welcome to Under the Brand.
Thank you so much, Valerie. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for your support.
Of course. So, well, first, let's talk about SYOTOS and staying ahead of today's threats. I mean, obviously, the world is rapidly changing every second of the day. So, I mean, I'm assuming that this is probably one of the biggest areas and threats today that you look out for. So talk to us about how you stay ahead of that landscape.
Absolutely. With the landscape and security across the entire field is changing rapidly with the introduction of AI and technology, which are two separate, very different entities. Technology is one and AI is a different piece.
Yeah.
A piece of them have always been embedded forever. I think we're just becoming more aware of what this is.
Yeah.
You've heard a lot of some of the thought leaders across the AI community and technology community be very vocal on this is something that's new to us and something that's changing at such a rapid pace that we're not actually sure where it goes or what it all entails. We have a due diligence to, as a country, to remain one of the leaders in that career in that field to ensure that we're protecting our citizens, we're protecting our interests. So with the huge push of AI and technology, one of my fears, and actually this was a piece of my dissertation, the implementation and the utilization of AI and technology in different career fields, such as adjudicating, law enforcement, so forth and so on. There could be some biases, and I've identified those, a few of them, on the implementation and the usage of different technologies, going from body cams to drones to different technology from intrusive to more intrusive. It's happening all so fast that I think that we need to make sure that we have some SMEs extremely fine tuning this, fine combing this, and really looking at every aspect, not just on the sake of the protection of the country, but also the protection of our citizens.
So you're based in Miami, right? Miami?
So yeah, I do tons of
Yeah.
operations out of Miami, but I'm actually based up out of the top of the Panhandle, Destin, Pensacola area.
Okay. So that area is a seaport area, right? So we see a lot of things happening there before maybe, say, the Midwest, for example. And for people that watch the show all over the world, what are some unique things that are happening from a security standpoint, just in maybe the state of Florida or specifically some of those seaports?
Absolutely. So for my practicum during my doctorate, I actually did it at the Port of Miami, which is one of the largest ports in the state of Florida. And I helped increase their awareness and lower their vulnerability to drone attacks, as this is one of the major things that I believe is going to reshape the world. Drones have some usage. I don't think they should be for public consumption because of the mass amount of vulnerabilities with that. You can literally 3D print a drone, pack a very small, HME homemade explosive charge onto it and run it straight into anything that you would like with very little digital footprint or physical footprint, latent fingerprints, anything like that on it, making it extremely difficult to find out who that assailant, who that person is that was involved in this. So I believe that is the biggest threat. Obviously, with
Yeah.
that, and along with insider threat, I'm a counterintelligence guy, so insider threat is always one of our biggest things that we look into. And with the economy fluctuating like it is, one of the main reasons that people are more susceptible to doing things that they shouldn't is money. If their children aren't eating, if they can't make it to work, if they can't, do certain things that they're accustomed to, people are sometimes willing to sacrifice, give up, or bargain mentally with themselves to be
Yeah.
able to get those things done. So I think we definitely have a few issues with those things coming down the pipes, as we've already seen. But I believe that, it's something that the government is taking as a priority. And, those port officials, I worked a lot with those guys down there in Miami during that time. And, the work that they're doing and the U.S. Coast Guard is doing is marvelous. It truly is. They're aware of these issues, they're aware of these problems, and you have some real go-getters out there trying to help combat these issues. So, but I do see that as an issue.
Yeah, the drone detection is definitely a problem, right? It's like we don't really have a system to monitor the airspace for all of the drones. And then what you're talking about with the threats, on top of it, it does make for a very extreme situation. Earlier this year, I read that some lawmakers were trying to make it legal that you could take down a drone if it was in your backyard. Do you know if that came to fruition or if that is still an outstanding issue? So basically, how do people fight back?
Absolutely.
You
Yeah,
know?
absolutely.
Yeah.
So it has not been addressed yet. That is one of the issues that, I have with the advancement of some AI and technology that, yes, the constituents vote officials in and we allow them to vote and to pass laws and things like that on behalf of us. But I think there is some due diligence there that needs to be
Yeah.
to maintain public trust. There was a gentleman actually, he was about 70 years old, and he actually shot down a drone that was in his backyard, and he was charged with a felony due
Wow.
to shooting that down. But he was never informed that, you have different, and I won't name any entities, but you have many different commercial and restaurant brands now doing air delivery with drones. But I've never once seen a flyer out to the public or a commercial that let them know, hey, if you see this
Yeah.
buzzing in the sky and it's got this emblem on it, then you know it's us. I think that that could
Right.
be a potential huge issue, that you have nefarious characters that could dress these up just like a Halloween costume. And you got a drone flying across you that looks like a Happy Meal, but really it's an
Ugh,
explosive. And,
that's
there's
scary.
nothing until it's already done that, can be done. The air traffic control, they do a job on, monitoring the airs and, making sure that the return to home features for some of these more established companies are present. But, with technology advancing, like I said, you can 3D print one of these, not need a manufacturer, put a little battery on it, and it can cause some real havoc out here.
So, talk to me about SYOTOS Tech. How does that play in the space? And if you could elaborate on your role in all of this with SYOTOS Technology.
Yeah, absolutely. SYOTOS Technology came about when I was about year 7 in the SYOTOS LLC, which was my first company, security guard company. We protect people, places, and things. I saw the landscape shifting, and I'll be very honest and transparent. I didn't want to get left behind. My job as a CEO and as a businessman is to stay on par with the landscape that's changing around me and be aware and open to that change to pivot and to add things that may not even be comfortable for me.
Yeah.
So our first vertical inside of SYOTOS Technology is actually rideshare, where we only employ military, law enforcement, firefighter, EMT, paramedic, and through a program with SYOTOS Foundation, our 501(c)(3, we hire active duty spouses to conduct those ride shares on installations to be able to help lower that force protection issue. So if we can get people that already have access to the bases, already have access to the populace there, then maybe we can help lower some of this drug peddling, lower some of this pedophilia, human trafficking, and so forth and so on. Because who wants to really dish that out to their kids or in
Right.
their communities?
Right. So, how does this work exactly? Is this for anybody to what
Yeah,
who's customer basically on this?
absolutely. So it's the drivers are who I mentioned, but it's completely open to the public. We've launched in Nashville up to Fort Campbell area. We're going to be expanding to the next area is going to be actually my area from Pensacola to Panama City Beach due to just there's so many military installations over here. And, We want to also make sure that we're putting it in areas of high traffic so that Americans can find out about this great product. And,
Yeah.
I consider us like the bread aisle. You know what I'm saying? You have the Ubers, you have the Lyfts, great organizations. This is the bread aisle, though. You come
Yeah.
down and you just select and pick if this is a medium that you think offers the security features and the things that you like, and you want to support this country's veterans, first responders, so forth and so on,
Yeah.
then you can take a SYOTOS, and we'll make sure we see you on the other side, as that's
That's
what
awesome.
SYOTOS stands for. So that's where that is. And the way that transfers is to, as SYOTOS technology continues to build out, attracting and only really accepting those demographics of people. These guys and gals come out of the military, out of the, first responders, out of whatever their duties was to this country or community, with the
Mm.
vast amount of knowledge, skills, and education that the civilian world doesn't necessarily always understand. We have to go through a lot of verbiage changing and stuff like that. And it's very hard to cross translate some of these professions. But being able to work underneath the umbrella of an organization that is full of these individuals, and have some time, and energy, and they're willing to put in the effort to build out an ecosystem that allows these people, as they're getting out of the military and so forth and so on, to come into an organization that can springboard you into whatever you'd like. And we're not greedy, we're not stingy. We understand that things are springboards. Everything is not permanent. We care about them. So whether
Yeah.
they stay with us or they don't stay with us, it doesn't matter. We care about the people. It's not about the money. It's about the people. And
Yeah.
I much rather, be known by 1,000 people and be in good graces with 1,000 people than have $1,000, because you don't
Yeah.
know what opportunities could come from those 1,000 people rather than that $1,000. So
Sure.
who's going to
Sure.
be there to that $1,000 is going to run out. But if, my children are somewhere and they say, hey, isn't that the guy that is always standing up for veterans? Like, hey, man, let me go interject really quick. Sometimes you just need
Yeah.
people to step in the
Yeah.
gap in different areas where you're not at. And I think that's, huge upon legacy and huge upon what we're doing here, giving everybody that opportunity. And to caveat and to really answer your question, what is SYOTOS technology doing? We're bringing in all these skills that come from, the greatest force under the sun, the U.S. military,
Yeah.
and we're putting them in position so that way they can be in position for
Yeah.
themselves, not necessarily for anyone else. So I take great pride in that. I mean, that's truly our mission here, connecting with other companies that may not get the visibility. It's very hard out here to get your first opportunity. So if you have somebody in the fight that's willing to always look back and reach out a helping hand, and say, hey, take this opportunity, come partner with me on this opportunity,
Yeah.
come partner with me on this, and get your foot in. I think it'll help us out a lot more once we realize that it's still a team. It's one team, one fight across the country, as this is all our country. And if we can lean on each other and really help support each other, I think it'll be something.
Well, that's very commendable. Thank you for all of that, Trey. And it's wonderful what you're building, and that mission centric vision is what this country needs to unify it. Since we're talking about mission, I want to talk about healing heroes. You have so many unique aspects of your journey, and that this is yet another great milestone for you. Talk about your involvement with Healing Heroes, what led you to that organization, what you're currently doing with them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
My introduction to Healing the Hero came through Abel Rodriguez, a warrant officer in 7th Special Forces Group. We had connected during my tenure, as that's where I got out, 2nd Battalion, 7th Special Forces Group, and he worked up at Group. So we knew of each other. He was a great guy. He transitioned out, I transitioned out, and we reached out to each other one day, and it was just like through LinkedIn, great platform, and we were able to stay in contact, highs and buys here and there. And eventually he reached out to me and we went and had lunch. And he told me about a company that the CEO is Dan Jarvis, one of the best Americans I've ever met, retired out the U.S. Army, infantry guy. But the biggest and most important thing about him is, he's a God believer. His
Mhm.
faith is top tier, and that's how I was raised. I'm a preacher's kid. So I come up in that upbringing. My faith is what has kept me, guided me, protected me along this journey, and I don't take it for granted, as he's still the head of my life. And though we fall short every day, I'm glad that he is my grounding, and that always forgiving and always willing to move forward with me. So I think that, especially with my condition, having ulcerative colitis and Crohn's, I've really seen, minus the combat stuff, because combat is combat. But I think having medical issues at home as a younger guy, of really getting the bags of blood and, multiple blood transfusions. I think I've had like 20, and thank God I haven't had any in many years because I've got my condition under control now. But being able to be in those positions, be in those ICUs, hear those doctors tell me, we don't know, Trey, you really have to, you find something. And I'm thankful that, he found me and I found him, and that we've been able to connect with different organizations like Healing the Hero, which their biggest mission is being able to take veterans, take first responders that have had this trauma, and retool it so that you can get repackaged and go back out and be a better version of you. Taking the time, the conversations. Dan is doing some great things. They're writing an IRB over now with, I believe, the University of Southern California, on being able to actually show that post-traumatic syndrome can actually be healed. It's not something that you have to endure for the rest of your life. And he's got like this cool helmet that they put on, and all this other stuff that they do, and it's truly amazing. And even the session that we had one session, and probably within like 7 minutes, he has you like in tears. It's like that old school TV show. Like, he's that type of guy. Like, he's just gonna pull that trauma out of you, and he's just gonna help you walk through it. And I think one of the biggest things that really helps me that he says is that you go back to that main issue, whatever it may have been or whatever it is, and you have to realize that even at that moment, God was still there, and realize that he's holding your hand through it. So be comfortable knowing that he is all and he's great. And the mission that they're doing over there, I just can't say enough. So definitely go look at Dan Jarvis on LinkedIn. He's a people Rodriguez. I love all those guys.
That is wonderful. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Again, I commend you on all the work that you're doing. It's really amazing, and it's a miracle that you're here able to share all this with us. Oh, kind of, you touched on it a little bit about leadership and faith. And, not everybody talks about that. And I know military, it's definitely more accepted to talk about faith, but I also feel like spirituality and having a strong grounding gets us through a lot of day to day. And I think people really, I mean, you talk about the big issues, right? Health, post traumatic stress, but even day to day stuff, like talk about that. How do you ground yourself in your faith? What does that look like day in and day out? And what
Absolutely.
advice do you have for people? I mean, because you don't have to be military or even grow up in a faith household, right?
Yeah.
Faith can look like so many different things. So it would be good if you could share a little bit
Yeah,
about that with
absolutely.
us.
One of I'll kind of summarize it like this. I have a tattoo on my arm, and it's the footprints in the sand prayer. And if you've never heard of it, it's about a gentleman or a woman, whatever fits your category, walking on the beach, and they were walking and talking with Jesus, and life was good, everything was going great. And during the hardest times, the person looked down and they noticed that there was only one set of footprints. And for a while, they became somewhat angry. Why me? Why this? So forth and so on, just to finally be answered back to say, well, why did you leave me? And his response was, that's when I carried you. Those weren't your footprints. Those were mine.
Wow. Wow.
So being able to know that he's omnipresent, always here, always available for me, looking back at, and I think one of the things a good training tool is to go back to the last time you vividly remember something happening and you're like, that had to be God. Like, that was crazy. Like, I got the job, I got the promotion, this got moved, this got moved. Go
Yeah.
back to that moment. If you haven't had one in a minute, go back to that moment and realize and remember that it's real. And a lot of times throughout the day, the ups and downs of it, everybody, imposter
Yep.
syndrome, all these different things that they set in, and they can be heavy. Being a father, being a husband, being a wife, being a spouse, being, a brother, sister, whatever it may be, a colleague, everything is heavy. Everybody's going through something. Nobody has an easy road.
True.
And, I think if everybody understood that, no matter if they have money or they don't have money, everybody has a difficult road. And one of my big things is just saying hi to everybody. I do about 3 miles Monday through Friday, and I go down to my local park. And as much as I like to walk, I'm an extrovert. So my mother, she was the head of the nursing board, and I got that bug from her. She was always she always is so hospitable.
Yeah,
Hi, how you doing? So forth and so on. And I think that just related to me. And I love to speak to people. I love to talk to them. That's how I get my cup full, just being able to, because you never know what somebody's going through that day. You might run into the person that could, solve cancer, solve some of the world's biggest issues, and they're hanging on by a thread. And just simply saying, hey, how are you? You could save somebody's life that day.
sure.
So
Absolutely.
I think kindness, just saying hi sometimes is enough. You don't have to go into people's details, and people, you would be
Yeah,
surprised how much it fills your cup on checking on someone else. So if you're
yeah, I
feeling low, go
agree
check
with
on
you.
somebody.
Well, I mean, and what you're talking about is gratitude. It's kindness, but it's also gratitude, right? Like
Absolutely.
just being kind to ourselves and each other. And I do think we've lost a lot of that in the last several years. And
Yes,
the pandemic really, I think, changed people's perspective. And
absolutely.
I would love to see a little bit more of that come back.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you're right, we don't have to get in each other's business. Well, honestly, all you have to do is get on Facebook if you wanna learn about someone's business.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, you're right. And I always tell people, like, it's not always about religion. It's about spirituality and your relationship with yourself, your journey on this earth with others, and how you leave an impact. And that's kind of my next question for you. It's about, leaving a legacy and the stuff that you're doing and the things that you've overcome in your life already and continue to overcome.
Yeah,
That legacy look like for you?
absolutely. So, I was talking to one of my friends about 2 days ago, actually, and we were talking about I was talking about SYOTOS, so forth and so on, and he says, "Hey man, well, why would you sell the?" I'm not thinking about selling, but we were talking about it, and he said, "Well, isn't there going to be your kids, your legacy that you leave to your kids?" And I stopped and I said, "No." I said, when they close the box, the king and the pawn go in the same box. So at the end of it, I want people to be able to say, this was a kind guy. This guy was a man of action. He took broad steps. He stepped outside of his comfort zone. He offered opportunities to people that may have never gotten those opportunities. He broke down barriers that I myself didn't even know that I could break down. I'm the youngest child of six. My parents don't have high school diplomas. And here I am, sitting with all of this. So by the grace of God, and I truly believe that just being a kind person in this world, taking care of people, treat others how you want to be treated. You never know. You're always dealing with somebody's mom, somebody's sister,
Right.
somebody. Act like you would want a stranger to treat your family. And that's
Yeah,
really been something that's guided me. Treat people how you want to be treated. As I tell people, you get further with sugar than vinegar in this world. So
for
um,
sure.
be
Yeah,
nice,
there's
be
enough
kind.
vinegar going around. Yeah, I know. I
Yeah,
agree with
absolutely.
you. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's right. Like also, our children have their own destiny to fulfill.
Yeah,
And who are we to tell them you've got to continue where we left off? They're supposed to do better than what we did, right? And so, I mean, I'm sure there's aspects of us that they will continue
absolutely.
with, but that's their destiny and their path to assume. So I really respect and appreciate that, and very very sound advice. So you've lived such a diverse career and just lifestyle, right? With all the different paths and types of people that you've encountered. What advice do you have for just general business owners? Like one thing that you could tell business owners, because you know what the struggles are
Yeah,
growing a business and
yes.
balancing family. Like, what would you say to them, Trey?
I would say that don't be scared to ask for help.
Yeah.
A lot
Yep.
of time people don't think that, because of all the media and all the other stuff, man, there's so much propaganda out there that make people forget that people are actually kind. I'm
That's
not
true.
really running into these people that are negative. I'm not really running into these people, you know what I mean? And I'm out
Yeah,
here.
I'm
So
not either.
Yeah, like, like let's remember that people are kind and that people actually do mean well by most people.
Yeah.
And that if you ask somebody for help, they're most likely going to feel honored that you asked them for help. And they're going to want to give you the gems, the tools, the lessons learned that they had to help you prevent some of those pit stops that they had to go through.
Yeah.
And I am
Yeah.
big upon surrounding myself with people that have more experience than me and picking their brains. I don't want to go through, I felt the stove too many times to realize, to know that, hey, you know what? If somebody tells me don't touch the stove, I no longer need to touch it. I
Right.
don't. I don't.
Yeah.
So being able to listen to that advice, heed that advice, knowing that you don't know it all and you never will, removing the ego. There's no reason to have an ego in business, as you can be the greatest in any one thing. There's somebody always on your heels. That too shall pass. So knowing that, and then with family, I would say a lot of times family isn't going to understand how much time, energy, and effort you have to put into something to do
Yeah.
something that they've never seen. It doesn't digest well when you're saying, "Hey, I have to be over here. I have to put this 1,000 hours in to because I want to become one of the best in this industry. I want to become one of the best in this field." They hear you, but they don't. And
Yeah.
being able to balance that, and sometimes that means, letting some people down for the greater good. My job
Yeah.
as a father is to be there, but to also be 1,000 meters out in front of them. And while I'm in position, putting myself in position so that way their bottom floor is not my bottom floor. I think that's the really only thing that you can do as a parent, making sure that if I hit rock bottom, there's no support line, there's no backup, there's no this. Making sure that, these whole life policies are already established for them. These whole life policies for myself are already established. So that way, when people leave this world, that we're able to benefit from our loss, unfortunately, as everyone else is. So being able to understand that, monetize that opportunity for the next generation to go further, go harder, and you being able to put that mindset and the people that you've had around you, having clear communication on the hard discussions.
Yeah. Yeah, that's excellent advice. Thank you. Well, I think we're about wrapped up here, and it was just an honor and a pleasure to have you. Thank you again for your service, leadership, and commitment to protecting and healing the communities. To our listeners, stay bold, stay inspired, and remember, under every brand, there's a bigger mission. Until
Absolutely.
next time, yes. Thank you so much, Jay. Again, it was such a pleasure and look forward to hopefully having you on again.
Yeah, absolutely. That was great. Thank you so much for having me. It was a joy.
Thank you.